Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's space agency ISRO is set to make history with the groundbreaking space docking experiment. Former US President Jimmy Carter dies at 100. A village in India was named after him to honor his visit in 1978. And in cricket, India loses the Melbourne Test to Australia, trails the series 1-2 with one test to go. In a pivotal milestone in space exploration, Indian Space Research Organisation is set to launch its space docking experiment SpaDeX. The mission will use PSLV C-60 lifting off at 10 p.m. local time, that is 16:30 GMT from Sriharikota. It's a pioneering mission aimed to establish India's capability in orbital docking. SpaDeX will deploy two identical satellites. Key objectives include performing precision rendezvous and docking maneuvers, validating power transfer between docked spacecraft and operating payloads post-undocking with a 2-year lifespan. This capability is vital for India's lunar and interplanetary missions. Docking technology enables multi-launch missions and supports future human spaceflight. Only the US, Russia and China have mastered such advancements so far. So let's understand what SpaDeX mission is all about. Now, SpaDeX mission is a cost-effective technology demonstrator mission for the demonstration of in-space docking using two small spacecraft launched by PSLV. This technology is essential for India's space ambitions such as Indian on the Moon, sample return from the Moon, the building and operation of Bharati Antariksh Station. Through this mission, India is marching towards becoming the 4th country in the world to have space docking technology. The primary objective of the SpaDeX mission is to develop and demonstrate the technology needed for rendezvous, docking and undocking of two small spacecraft. Demonstration of the transfer of electric power between the docked spacecraft, which is essential for future applications such as in-space robotics, like composite spacecraft control and payload operations after undocking. The demonstrated precision of the PSLV vehicle will be utilized to give a small relative velocity between the target and chaser spacecraft at the time of separation from the launch vehicle. This incremental velocity will allow the target spacecraft to build a 10 to 20 kilometer inter-satellite separation. Moving on, in South Korea, a memorial service was organized for the victims of the Jeju airplane crash. South Korea's acting president has ordered an emergency safety inspection of the country's entire airline operations after 179 people died in the plane crash on Sunday. Here's more.
Two crew members were pulled alive from the crash site at the Muan International Airport in South Korea on Sunday morning. This is one of the worst plane crashes in decades to hit the country. South Korea's acting president announced a week-long mourning period. Mourners also gathered at a memorial center in the city of Muan to pay their respects, leaving flowers and sharing their grief.
공항에 이미 들었을 때는
When I saw the video, it was like the plane had lost control. My daughter, who is only in her 40s, is gone. This is unimaginable.
마음이 안 좋죠.
It happened right here, not far away. It's traumatic. I don't know how long this feeling will last, but I know it won't go away anytime soon.
The crash occurred as the plane attempted to land on its belly after the landing gear failed to deploy. Both crew members were rescued from the tail section, which was the only part of the plane that retained some shape. Another Jeju airplane reported a landing gear issue just a day later. South Korea has ordered air safety probe and also a special inspection of all Boeing 737-800s operating in the country.
We will conduct a detailed inspection of the B737-800 aircraft and review maintenance systems to determine next steps.
Aviation experts say some sort of landing gear malfunction was likely, with bird strikes and poor weather also under probe. This crash reminds everyone of the 228 people killed in a South Korean airline in Guam in 1997. Bureau Report, DD India.
And staying with South Korea, the authorities have sought the arrest of suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol over the short-lived declaration of martial law. The Joint Investigation Unit is seeking Yoon's arrest on charges of insurrection and abuse of power after the impeached leader ignored 3 summons to appear for questioning. A court will decide whether to issue an arrest warrant following the request. Yoon was suspended from presidential powers after being impeached by Parliament earlier this month over his decision to briefly impose martial law. A constitutional court trial is ongoing into whether to reinstate Yoon or remove him permanently from office. It has 180 days to reach a decision. On Friday, the court held its first preparatory hearing where a request by Yoon's lawyers for a postponement in proceedings to better prepare was denied. The court said it would move swiftly. The next hearing is due on the 3rd of January. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev is demanding that Russia takes responsibility for accidental shooting of Azerbaijan Airlines passenger jet before it crashed, killing 38 of the 67 people on board. Aliyev honored the victims of the crash at a ceremony and posthumously awarded the crew with the titles of National Hero of Azerbaijan. Aliyev said he wanted Russia to accept it was guilty of downing the plane and to punish those responsible. Azerbaijani officials have suggested that the aircraft was hit by a Russian air defense system as it tried to land in Grozny, the capital of the Russian Republic of Chechnya.
First, the Russian side should apologize to Azerbaijan. Secondly, it must admit its guilt. Thirdly, the guilty must be punished, brought to criminal responsibility, and compensation must be paid to the Azerbaijani state, the injured passengers, and crew members. These are our conditions. The first of them was already fulfilled yesterday. I hope our other conditions will also be accepted.
Meanwhile, Azerbaijan's general prosecutor said in a statement that Russia had informed Baku that intensive measures are being carried out to identify the guilty people and bring them to criminal responsibility. Syria's de facto leader Ahmed al-Shara has said that it might take up to 4 years before elections can be held in the country. His remarks mark the first time he has spoken about a possible electoral timeline since Bashar al-Assad was ousted earlier this month. In an interview to a media outlet, Shara explained that drafting a new constitution could take as long as 3 years. He added that Syrians might need to wait another year to see significant changes take shape.
Drafting a new constitution and the constitutional amendments need a long time by experts. They may need 2 or 3 years. God knows our country cannot be run by the mentality of groups and factions. Since we were in Idlib, we are ready for this psychologically and morally.
Croatia's incumbent president Zoran Milanovic secured the most votes in Sunday's presidential election but fell just short of a majority. A second round of voting will be held on 12th January next year. Milanovic secured 50.1% of the votes in the first round of voting. His closest rival, Dragan Primorac, trails far behind with 22.3% support, setting up an interesting second-round clash. In Spain, thousands of protesters are demanding the resignation of regional leader Carlos Mazón over his handling of recent floods, which claimed over 220 lives. Local residents have been critical of what they see as lackluster alerts from authorities when the floods hit and the late response by the emergency services. Mazón has admitted that he had made errors but refused to resign. He said the body responsible for measuring water flows, run by the national government, failed to send sufficient warnings. A healthy and happy New Year. That's what we are traditionally wishing each other on New Year's Eve. But how healthy will the New Year really be? How healthy was the last one? In Germany, for instance, public insurance companies have tallied up their numbers and checked how well the workforce is doing. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin. Lars, how healthy were Germans in 2024?
Thanks for having me. Well, looking at the headline number here, it's not great. On average, German employees were out sick 17.7 days this past year, and that's a new record. A year earlier, the number stood at 17.4 days, and looking a bit further back, before the COVID pandemic, the annual average stood at 14.1 sick days per employee. Now, what is bothering Germans? It's mostly respiratory diseases, so that covers everything from the cold to the flu, throw a few COVID infections in there, but of course also some tougher conditions like pneumonia. Then a second on the list are psychological conditions, with patients suffering from burnout, depression, angst or panic attacks. And then third on the list are musculoskeletal issues, and those include pretty much all injuries or pain in joints, ligaments, muscles, nerves and tendons, starting from the spine down to, let's say, carpal tunnel syndrome in your wrist.
Why is the number of sick days going up though? Why are Germans getting sick more often?
I think they're not. Fortunately, they're not getting sick more often, but they stay home from work more often. And there seems to be a direct link to the pandemic a few years ago. I can tell you from my own experience that I used to go to work when I had a cold, and usually even a light fever wouldn't really stop me. There's that idea that you're needed at your job. There's a sense of responsibility, of course. But the pandemic has really changed that. Nowadays, people feel more of a responsibility to stay home and protect their co-workers when they are sick. Obviously, with the experience we had during COVID with a highly infectious disease spreading fast, we learned that the best way to avoid more damage is to keep others safe and maybe just really stay in bed and get better to be back at work soon then. Now, that would explain why especially the number of respiratory cases is up. Now, one thing I found really interesting in the report that I saw, the number of sick days in southern Germany is quite a bit lower than in the northwestern part of Germany. The situation is worst in the northeastern part. Pretty much the entire region of the former East Germany has about 15% more sick days than the average. I'm not sure why that is. I guess that at some point warrants a deeper look too.
Can you tell us what jobs are especially affected by people getting sick?
Yes, and that's quite interesting too, because there are differences. Of course, people tend to get sick no matter what they do, but there are a few professions that really stand out. The number of sick days is relatively high in the health sector, but that of course includes doctors and nurses that are around sick patients a lot. They might catch something faster, and they might also stay home more when they're sick so as not to endanger their patients. Then there's jobs in construction, mining and similar industrial jobs. Here we can see more of those musculoskeletal issues because of the physical labor involved. And then there's a few jobs with surprisingly few sick days. Those include IT and telecommunication jobs. Those, of course, are often done remotely. So a cold or a cough don't really stop you from working because you can log into the system safely from home. And another group with very few sick days, self-employed people. That is obviously because they literally get paid for the work they do. They don't have paid sick days, so they tend to work in almost any condition simply because they can't afford otherwise.
Lars, thank you. Lars Holter reporting there from Berlin. And still to come on DD India Live. More migrants reach Spain's Gran Canaria. And a new board game set against the backdrop of an imagined Chinese invasion of Taiwan, set for release in January.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Former US President and Nobel Peace Laureate Jimmy Carter has passed away at 100. Carter had been in hospice care since mid-February 2023 at his home in Plains, Georgia, the same town where he was born, and once ran a peanut farm before becoming governor of the Peach State and running for White House.
My name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president.
Jimmy Carter was the 39th President of the United States of America between 1977 and 1981. He was awarded the 2002 Nobel Peace Prize for work to find peaceful solutions to international conflicts, to advance democracy and human rights, and to promote economic and social development. Carter was born on October 1st, 1924 in Georgia. After 7 years' service as a naval officer, he returned to his hometown. In 1962, he entered state politics, and 8 years later, he was elected the governor of Georgia. Carter announced his candidacy for the president in December 1974 and began a 2-year campaign that gradually gained momentum. On November 2, 1976, he defeated Republican incumbent Gerald Ford in the presidential election and was sworn in as the next president. On September 17, 1978, he signed the Camp David Accords, which led to peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. Carter prompted government efficiency through civil service reforms and proceeded with deregulation of the trucking and airline industries. He sought to improve the environment. His expansion of the national park system included protection of 103 million acres of Alaskan lands. To increase human and social services, Carter created the Department of Education, bolstered the social security system, and appointed record numbers of women, blacks, and Hispanics to government jobs. After presidency, he founded the Carter Center in 1982. It's a non-governmental organization that focuses on conflict resolution and health initiatives. In 2002, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. His presidency was marked by feud lows also. The seizure as hostages of the US embassy staff in Iran dominated the news during the last 14 months of his administration. The consequences of Iran's holding Americans captive, together with continuing inflation at home, contributed to Carter's defeat in 1980. Even then, he continued the difficult negotiations over the hostages. Iran finally released the 52 Americans the same day Carter left office. In November 1980, he was defeated by Republican challenger Ronald Reagan in the presidential election. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
The world is mourning the loss of Jimmy Carter. Incumbent US President Joe Biden remembers the former president as a model of what it means to live a life of meaning and purpose.
The entire Carter family, on behalf of the world, the whole nation, we send our whole heartfelt sympathies and gratitude. Our gratitude for sharing President Carter with us for so many years. You know, Jimmy Carter stands as a model of what it means to live a life of meaning and purpose, life of principle, faith, and humility. You know, he was like my dad. He thought that, he said, Joey, your job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about dignity, your dignity. About being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, everything's going to be okay.
European leaders sent condolences to the family of the late US President Jimmy Carter, highlighting his legacy as a human rights and peace advocate. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen underlined Carter's quote-unquote moral leadership. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi condoled the passing of former US President Jimmy Carter. In a post on X, he said, and I quote, "A statesman of great vision, he worked tirelessly for global peace and harmony. His contributions to fostering strong India-US ties leave a lasting legacy. My heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, and the people of the US." As condolences pour in for the late Jimmy Carter, DD India's Prasar Bharati travels to a village near New Delhi, which was named after the former US president, to commemorate his visit to the country in 1978.
Where I am standing right now is the exact place where former US President Jimmy Carter visited. This place is in India's Haryana, and the name of this place is Kartarpuri. Kartarpuri, this name has a big significance. The name of this place earlier was Daulatpur Nasirabad, which was later on changed to Kartarpuri. When former US President Jimmy Carter arrived here, when he came here, he was accompanied by the then First Lady and the then Prime Minister of India, Morarji Desai. He came here on 3rd of January 1978.
We were saddened by the news of his demise. There is sorrow all across the village. He was like a family member. The entire village consider him one of their own.
There was a lot of work done for a month, such as cleaning when he came.
The entire village gathered. He came at our doorstep.
Every year, villagers celebrate his visit of January 3rd as a memory.
He fulfilled his promise which he made to his mother of visiting India. His mother used to work here as a social worker in late 1960s. When he came here, he was given a grand welcome by showers of petals of flowers and also some handcrafted gifts which the villagers gave to former US President Jimmy Carter. In fact, during his tenure, Kartarpuri and the White House maintained remained in regular touch. Although he is not here between us, but his memories will certainly remain in the hearts of people and also in the heart of the people of Kartarpuri. With camera person Jagamohan, this is Siddharth Bharadwaj reporting for DD India in Haryana.
All right, now take a look at what else is making news around the world. A group of over 67 migrants reached Spain's Gran Canaria island on Sunday evening local time on a fiberglass boat at the beach of Castillo del Romero. Upon arrival, they were assisted and treated by the Red Cross organization. A new board game set against the backdrop of an imagined Chinese invasion of Taiwan is set for release in January. Titled 2045, the game lets players navigate a military conflict just 10 days before a Chinese invasion using action cards and role-playing characters. The game aims to offer players a deeper understanding of the potential scenarios in the event of a Chinese attack. Nepal's Bagmati province is hosting a 5-day-long honey festival. Sponsored by the government of Nepal, the festival gives visitors a chance to taste 6 types of honey for free. The festival aims to encourage honey marketing and provide additional income to local farmers through apiculture. To sports news now. Australia took 7 Indian wickets in the final session of the 4th Test in Melbourne to win by 184 runs and go 2-1 up in the 5-match series. Yashasvi Jaiswal fought a lone battle, scoring 84 runs. India's downfall started when Rishabh Pant was dismissed for 30 while playing a pull shot. Nitish Kumar Reddy and Ravindra Jadeja also failed cheaply after Pant's departure. India were all out for 155 runs. For Australia, pacers Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc grabbed 3 wickets each, while Nathan Lyon snapped up 2 wickets. The final test starts in Sydney on Friday. Take a look now at the weather updates from around the world.
Jammu and Kashmir in India is in a grip of intense cold wave. Mercury has plummeted after incessant snowfall. Indian Meteorological Department has predicted dense to very dense fog over North India for the next 2 to 3 days, along with the cold wave conditions.
Following the western disturbance, there has been an increase in fog conditions as well as cold day conditions over entire North Indian plains as well as the western Himalayas. This situation we are expecting to continue for the next 2 days. Yellow alert has already been issued for much of North India for the next 2 days. Of course, there are some places with orange alert also where severe cold day is predicted.
Meanwhile, France's new Prime Minister, Francois Bayrou, arrived in the French Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte, which was devastated by the cyclone on December 14th. 39 people were killed by the catastrophic cyclone. In South America, the large waves reaching up to 13 feet devastated the regions of Ecuador, Chile, and Peru. The Peruvian government closed 91 ports after 3 people were killed.
A brother fisherman from Acapulco beach, where they experienced the strongest waves, had a lot of problems. They could not wait any longer to be rescued. Today, thank God, 30 fishermen returned. Over 2,000 fishermen in Canoas de Punta Sal are stuck.
Similarly, strong winds and heavy rains battered the streets of Mississippi's McGee City. At least 10 tornadoes touched down in the southeastern U.S. states of Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi over the weekend, leaving 1 person dead near Houston. Kajal's report for DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and around the world on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.